While the 50 Shades comments are usually a place for us all to gather and caps lock rage about the fact that these books exist and are enjoyed by so many people, there was another interesting conversation that happened last week. We learned that Christian Grey is part of that annoying group of people who view television, and implicitly people who watch it, as beneath him. This kind of comical given that he's a character in what is probably the worst book that I have ever read. Anyway, this prompted you guys to get into an interesting discussion in the comments, and it seemed like a perfect topic for this week's Segue Magic videos. So just to be clear about the topic of this video, we're talking about books versus television as art forms, rather than adaptations, for example. That is actually kind of a useful introduction to my thoughts on this topic, so just really quickly, my rant about adaptation complainers is usually twofold. One, an adaptation can never destroy the source material because the source material continues to exist. Two, the whole point of an adaptation, in theory, is to take a story from one medium to another. As a result, changes have to be made. There are different advantages and constraints, and change is an inevitable part of that process. Game of Thrones book readers have mentioned in the comments that what is happening to Bran in the book right now is a lot more philosophical and introspective. The sort of thing that is probably much better suited for first-person narration in a book than on a television show. The fact that two different kinds of media lend themselves to telling different kinds of stories does not mean that one is inherently superior or smarter or better or of greater social value. There are a lot of masterful, clever things happening on television, and a lot of those are a direct result of the medium itself. Off the top of my head, relevant to this blog examples, two of the best executed episodes of Buffy, one of which we actually have not gotten to yet, spoilers lore, are brilliant in large part because of the way that Whedon uses sound in those episodes. It's a very powerful and interesting thing that he's able to do because of the medium itself, and that's just one super basic example of how it's a different, not better or worse, way to tell stories. Between the fact that my degree is in communications and that we blog about pop culture, there are obviously a lot of feelings on this subject. You hear a lot of similar arguments when it comes to genres, like one being superior or whatever. Regardless, classifying an entire genre, or worse yet, art form, as being crap just kind of makes you sound really self-righteous and ridiculous. I ranted about this recently on Twitter, but I feel like people who just leave blind, explanation-free comments of the book is better do so for reasons that have less to do with the book or movie in question than with presenting themselves as an intellectual person who reads. Congratulations on that one time you picked up a book. This rant was prompted by Silver Linings Playbook, and my ranty feels on why the book isn't that good can be saved for another day. There are good and bad books, just as there are good and bad movies and TV shows. More than that, though, storytelling is all about expanding our worldview. We switch from general teasing to legit ranting in the 50 Shades post because we find that the worldview that it advances, if it can even be considered smart enough to be advancing a worldview, dangerous and disturbing. Speaking just for myself, it's that and not the stupidity that is so incredibly upsetting. This is an important distinction. It's the perfect example of the fact that there are plenty of crappy books out there that require all of 8 brain cells to enjoy. Going back to the history of this blog, anybody who gives blanket preference for, as an example, a Babysitter's Club book over all television is really oblivious to the smart, clever things that are happening in educational media these days. As an aside, this is actually kind of part of what I do. I manage the social media accounts for a company that develops classroom curriculum for films. Film has a lot of unique qualities for teaching big lessons about empathy and that wonderful worldview expanding quality of storytelling. Television does too. I think what it really comes down to is how you consume media. You can read intelligently or lazily. You, the reader, make that choice. The fact that you read, period, doesn't guarantee that you do so critically or in an engaged fashion. Similarly, if you're consuming crap media uncritically, that's a choice that you make. I actually don't fault that choice either. Like I said, I have a lot of feelings on this subject. Going back to what I said about the stupid factor, in addition to the sort of empathy building, worldview expanding capacity of storytelling, it's also there for entertainment. If 50 Shades was just stupid, we would probably still make fun of it, but it would be way less ragey. Like the Babysitter's Club posts. My sister and I were discussing So You Think You Can Dance, and I was telling her that my favorite part of the audition episodes, they could just do a montage of this and call it an audition episode and I would be happy, is the excitement from people who get advanced to the next round. There's nothing high-minded or complex about it. Watching happy people makes me happy. It's that simple, and I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. Perpetuating happiness to the detriment of no one is a net good, plain and simple. Okay, so this is already way too long and I haven't said everything that I want to say, but to wrap this up, the too long didn't watch version of this video is insisting that an entire medium is inferior or stupid rather than just not your thing reeks of ignorance. You clearly just haven't been exposed to all the great stuff that's happening in television or film, and I hope that someone sits you down and shows it to you. I could easily do an entire series of videos elaborating on this point. If you fervently disagree with me, I am willing to hear you out, so make your case in the comments. Or I am greatly looking forward to continuing this conversation with you on Friday.